After 2 months over in Europe, even though it was wonderful to be with the brethren there, I was ready to come home. I missed y'all. The brethren over there asked me several times to express their sincere greetings and their gratitude for making it possible for not only me, but the different congregations that helped Philip and Caleb to go over there and do the work that they did in Moldova. And I was informed when I saw them in Moldova that they had infiltrated the church here to try to find out a little bit about me. Fortunately, y'all didn't tell them everything. No, they very much enjoyed their visit here. They said it was wonderful for them to get to meet the church here. Kim, of course, knew Danny from way back in San Antonio days, but and it was good for you all to get to meet them and kind of put a face to the names that I've been giving you over the years. But it was good to be with them and to work with them again. I'm going to try not to go overtime as I've done in the past, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Just as a reminder for those who may not be familiar with what I do each year, for the past 3 years, I've been enabled to take 6 trips to Lithuania, right up here, and 3 trips down to Moldova, which is right down here. This actually started way back in 2019 when Ray and I took a trip to the Baltics, right up here. And I saw the situation of the church there and have been going back ever since. Since 2022, I've been able to make 6 trips, and that's all because of y'all's encouragement and your help. So I flew into Lithuania, spent 6.5 weeks or so in Vilnius, the capital city right here, then flew down to Moldova and spent 9 days there, visiting the churches and just kind of observing the lectureship that Caleb and Philip were holding. This is a little close-up of Lithuania, and again, Vilnius, the capital city. There are churches also in Kaunas and in Klaipėda. This is the largest church. I didn't get to go to Kaunas this time. There was just too much going on to do in Vilnius. So I was right here in Vilnius for the whole stay in Lithuania. But while there, we got to do a number of things. Of course, each week that I was there, I got tagged to do the preaching for some reason, which is fine because that's why I'm there, to kind of help lift the burden and help them out a little bit. But this is the assembly in the Vilnius church. Just like in any assembly of the saints, it goes up and down. It was a little bit down this day, but there have been times when the building's been almost filled. So some of these folks you'll recognize. This is Javilla, Joseph's wife. This is Dinah, a longtime member of the church there. Yolanta, also a longtime member, and her husband, Arturus, which you can't really see back here. Here is Renata, who has really become kind of an instrumental figure in the church, even though she's about a year old in the faith. And this is an American couple, Sonny and Terry Orell, that I have written to you about. She is actually attached to the embassy in Minsk, in Belarus. But since that embassy is not active, she works out of the Vilnius embassy. She is the chief of security for the embassy there in Minsk, and actually made a trip there while I was there, kind of classified. I just asked her, "Are you going to Minsk?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Are you going to visit our embassy?" "Yes." Okay, enough questions. That's all I need to know. But they're going to be a help to the church there. She was raised in the church, if I remember correctly. Sonny is a converted Jehovah's Witness. And Sonny, unfortunately, I think he's accepted it. He was offered a temporary job here in the States for a year. And so he was back and forth while I was there. But Terry is there on a 2-year assignment. And with her experience and her wisdom, she's going to be helpful to the church there in Vilnius. So good to see them there for that. As usual, we got to have our interviews at XFM, the only evangelical radio station in Lithuania. It broadcasts in, I think, 7 different cities, if I recall, with a total listenership of 70,000. Um, but this time, since I was there so long, we got to have 3 interviews at XFM. So that was really good, and they promised that they would promote our lectureship that we were going to have there, or actually the seminar that I held. This is Remigius Eusebicius. Say that 3 times real fast. He is the general manager of XFM there in Lithuania. And after we had a 45-minute interview, which is about as far as you can go with their air programming, we sat down for 90 minutes, and he just talked to me about ways that he can encourage people to get into Bible study and to get serious about living as Christians. And so we discussed that quite a bit. He promised that he would promote the seminar that Joseph had the idea of us doing, and they did that. And so it was really good. I had met him before. In fact, Remigius and Justinus, the program director, had been to one of our lectureships about a year ago and attended one night. And so we built a good relationship with them. We'll see how it goes in the future. This was one of the youth classes that I sat in on. I sat in on 2 and actually conducted one because there's this brother in the States here actually does it on a Zoom call. And it's not only these Vilnius kids here, but also others tune in on the Zoom call. This is Tia and Paul. This is Joseph and Javila's daughter and son. This is Sister Walls. She actually lives in Belarus, where she teaches English, and she's done that there for years. She was awaiting there in Vilnius to get her visa to get into Belarus, and because Belarus is a hostile country to Lithuania, there was that going on. This is Joseph, who is not a member of the church, but attends a lot of the youth groups. And this is Dinah's son, Edis, who was baptized this last summer. More on him later. Very impressive young man. This is the reinstitution of the Tuesday night studies at Joseph and Javila's house. They had just kind of gotten out of doing that, and so I said, let's get them going back then. So we did. This is Davidas, who was the first person we baptized when I went back to Lithuania in 2022. This is Arturas, his wife Jolanta, Dinah, once again, Terry and Sonny, the American couple. This is Gleb, who is a Ukrainian refugee, Russian-speaking Ukrainian refugee, now living in Vilnius. And this is longtime faithful, godly member, Sergei Rantsev, and he translates everything into Russian for Gleb. Right now, Gleb is having some problems. He's homesick. He's from Mariupol. And if you know anything about the war there, that was the first big city that Russia took in the invasion. They completely devastated it. He told me some of the horror stories of him getting out of Mariupol, evading Russian troops who were killing civilians, and making it to Lithuania. So he's in construction. He's been trying to find work, but he's homesick, and it's a difficult situation for him. So please keep him in your prayers. This is one of the highlights of the trip. The first time I've ever done anything like this. Javila, of course, you might recall, is a grade school teacher. She teaches English to 4th graders, if I remember correctly, and she has 3 classes. And she just said one day, you know what would be great is if you came in and spoke to my classes. Okay, let's do it. So we did. And so here she is telling the class what's going to be going on, who that strange guy over in the corner is, and what he's going to be doing. And then she broke them up into little groups and tasked them with coming up with questions to ask our American visitor, which they did. And they asked some pretty good questions. And this is the American visitor speaking to the class. Um, Actually, it was really wonderful. It's interesting how much they know about America, because I started off by showing a picture of the Lithuanian flag, and then I showed our flag, and I said, "What do you notice about this flag?" And they go, "Well, there's all those stars." I said, "How many of you know what those stars mean?" And a whole bunch of hands would go up, and those are for the states. Good. How many are there? 50. Some of them said 55 and others said 47, but most of them knew it was 50 stars. So one of the questions they finally got around to asking me was, "What do you do?" And I told them a little bit about my past. I had a picture up there of the semi-trucks I used to drive. But I told them I'm retired now, and basically I'm a missionary. I come to Lithuania to teach the Bible and work with the Christians. And in one class, 3 hands shot up and they go, "We go to theology school," which means they attend Catholic catechism. But it was interesting to get that reaction from them. And Javila later told me that they really enjoyed that whole meeting, the meetings I got to have with them, all 3 classes. One of them told Javila, "That American was really cool. Is he going to come back?" Well, we'll see. But it was a lot of fun to get with these kids. They're delightful. An upcoming generation, and maybe plant a few seeds there with them. And Javila is able to talk to them about God in her classes. Whenever she can kind of get it in there, she will. And so that's helpful. I've mentioned the seminar, that it was actually Josef's idea. He said, maybe one Saturday we could kind of do a mini seminar. Great, that's a good idea. And I've already mentioned, we mentioned it to XFM, and they did broadcast it. They announced it, and Josef's put some ads on Facebook to let people know date, time, place, and the subject. We were going to talk about the New Testament church. Well, these are mostly, we had 10 people show up. 7 of them were members of the church. This is Asta, that I have written about before. She's an elderly widow, but has kind of taken a leading role to help the women in the church. This is Nedimantas and Renata, who really have become leading figures in the church. Javila back here. Then off to the side, Davidas was running the board. He was making sure everything was recorded. And Joseph was off to my right doing the translating. But this couple back here, he is a charismatic and she is a Baptist. They heard the ad on XFM. So they came to the seminar and stayed for both sessions. This lady here, Danuta, is a Polish-Lithuanian Catholic. But she stated several times, "I'm reading the Bible on my own, and I have a lot of questions." That's what we're here for. You're welcome to ask any question. We'll answer it from the Bible. And she stated a couple of times, "I have these questions, but I don't think I'm going to get answers from the Catholic priests." I said, "Well, respectfully, you're right, because they will not go to the Bible like we will. I will try to answer every question from the Bible and allow you to check it out and make your own decision." So we shared contact information with these 3. I gave her my email. Haven't heard back from her, but there's a seed that was planted. And if you'll recall from the emails I sent, they asked a lot of very good questions. We spoke, the seminar was about 2 hours long with a break. And usually questions and answers go maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. We had questions for a solid hour from these 3 visitors primarily. And then after we stopped the seminar, they still had questions for about another 20 minutes when we were talking in the foyer. So as far as I'm concerned, it was very successful. And God used XFM, and I didn't mention, but Danuta saw the Facebook ad. That's why she showed up. And so God uses those efforts and plants his seed, and then we wait to see the harvest that he provides. This was a picture I took of Lithuania as I was getting ready to leave. Perfect timing. It's the fall of the year. I think about the second or third to last Sunday I was there, it was 79 degrees and sunny and just beautiful. The next day it was in the 50s and cloudy and rainy, and it never did warm up again. So they're even quicker than Texas. Someone went over there and flipped the summer switch down to fall, and it was just like that. But that is typical of Lithuania in the fall. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And if you all aren't aware, some of you may not be, that's the ancient homeland. My paternal grandfather immigrated with his family when he was 10 years old in 1905. They left Lithuania and came to the United States. So I am 1/4 Lithuanian, and I'm able to use that to get a bond going with Lithuanians that I meet. Used to be, I could also tell them I was American, which they were able to figure out pretty quickly. Unfortunately, that's not so popular anymore because of the situation with Russia and all the politics involved with that. But when they find out that my last name was probably Norbutas, bing, the antenna go up, they're ready to talk, and there's a bond right there, and we get to really have good discussions. So, leaving Lithuania on a rainy Saturday morning, I flew down to Moldova, to Chisinau, the capital city, where there is a church. You'll also recall there's a church up in Baltsa in the north, and Bandera here in the southeast. Phil and Caleb and Kim and Beth were already in Moldova. They arrived the day before. When I got in, I messaged everybody that I'm here in Moldova, I'm at the hotel, everything's good. So the next day, Sergey picked me up at the hotel, and together with Caleb and Kim, we went out to the church in Bandera. Caleb delivered a really good character study on Joseph, and use that to encourage the brethren there. Some of these brethren you might remember. This is Vasily Vladov, who is kind of our contact there whenever we send help. And behind him right here is Sister Lena Katayeva and her husband Sergey. You'll remember Lena. She's the one who had to go to Moscow for brain surgery. I guess it's been a couple of years now, and had that arduous bus trip back to Moldova through Latvia. How she made it, I don't know. She's one tough gal, but she's doing okay. She's on medications to try to keep her brain tumor from returning, but it is. So please keep them in your prayers. This is not a wealthy country. The people are not wealthy. Moldova is the second poorest country in Europe, and you can tell as you are out there on the streets. But they make their way. They're trusting in the Lord. They have their joy in the Lord, and their confidence is in Him, and they have their joy in meeting with each other. And it's always a blessing to meet with them. They're always so appreciative of us being there and the help that we want to provide. And we keep telling them, hey, you're the encouragement to us. It's not all about us. They're just wonderful brethren. Well, at the same time, like we always do, since we were down here in Bandera, Phil back here and Beth were up in Baltsa. And that's what we do. We split up, and we'll alternate, although we didn't get to do that this time. My second trip was also back to Bandera. But they meet in Dora's apartment, which you can see is pretty cozy. But the next week that Phil and Beth went back up there, they had been able to obtain a meeting place that was more in the center of town. And it only cost them $15 an hour to rent this place, which is awesome. So when they went back up there, they got to meet in their new facility. And here's a little bit of what it looks like. Much roomier, much nicer. And they feel that this is going to enable them to better be able to invite people from the community, because they're more centrally located in town. People are going to be more receptive of, oh, where do you meet? In my apartment. Well, I don't know. But if it's a neutral place that is accommodating and roomy, they're more likely to come. And they do invite people. It's mostly older ladies that make up the church in Balsa, but they're not sitting on their behinds doing nothing. They're out there talking to people, trying to invite them, and they always come down to Chisinau every year to attend the lectureships. So uh, just a wonderful group of brethren. I got to see them all at the lectureships. As I said, I didn't get to go up to Bandera or to Balsa this time because of the logistics, but still a wonderful, wonderful time. So in the evening, both groups come back from Balsa and Bandera, and we worship with the Chisinau Church. And so here they all are. This is Anna, who is Sergei's wife, and he's kind of a pillar of the church there. He does all the teaching. He alternates back and forth each weekend. He'll go up to Balsa one weekend and then down to Bandera the next, then back to Chisinau for the evening. Just ministering to the churches and teaching and bringing up aid to those that need benevolence. So he and his wife are a hard worker. This is Victoria, who is still a relatively new convert, but her mom was converted. This is her brother and her little daughter. Her husband, Octavian, is not a believer, not a Christian, but a wonderful man. We've met him on several occasions. This is Victor and Nelia, a longtime couple, very faithful and very helpful to Sergei in the church there. And of course, Caleb and Kim and Beth. Beth and Kim, both at all the churches they visited, of course, got involved with teaching the kids, which is what Kim especially does, where she attends with Phil and Beth in Edna. But I'll tell you, after a couple of classes with the kids there in Moldova, they just fell in love with her. She just really has a talent with the young ones. And you would hear them like 2 days into the lectureship or whatever, is Kim going to be here? Yes, she's coming. they not that Beth was not adored also, but just Kim, she just attracts the kids to her somehow. So each night here in Chisinau, Caleb and Phil would present lessons from the Sermon on the Mount. And so they did that on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So 3 lessons from the Sermon on the Mount to the church in Chisinau. Then we went on our street evangelism on Monday and Tuesday because we needed to get things prepared for the lectureship on Wednesday. So Monday we went into town on the busy boulevards, and Tuesday we went to this park, which is right near the hotel I was staying at. And actually, we had a little more success here. We handed out a lot more invitations on the boulevard because there were just so many people. But this is kind of a relaxed area. There's a big pond back here that people come to fish in, or they'll walk around the pond, or they'll come and sit on the benches and just enjoy the beautiful day that we have had in Moldova there. But this more relaxed atmosphere kind of gave the opportunity to talk to people a little bit. So we split up. Phil and Beth went this way around the lake. Caleb kind of went that way, which was sort of a kid's playground and a little bit more of the park. And I went around the lake this way. As I was going around, I ran into 3 young guys who were speaking English. So I knew what they were right away because they had little name tags on. They were Mormons. And I said, hey, you guys, would you like an invitation? Sure. So I gave them an invitation to the lectures. Unfortunately, the lectureship, or the wording on it, is Romanian on one side and Russian on the other. So kind of left them out. But what happened was, after I went around the lake, I came back here where Kim was kind of managing our little central location, where we have a banner that is in all 3 languages, Romanian, Russian, and English, that give the time, place, subject of the lectureships, and offering free Bibles, which are right here, 1 in Russian, 1 in English, and 1 in Romanian. So while we were here, those Mormons came around and walked by. And so I chatted them up a little bit. Where are you guys from? Well, one of them says, oh, I'm from California. Really? Where from? Oh, San Diego. I spent 17 years in San Diego, so very familiar with the area there. So that was a bond. We chatted him up, and then he had another American and then a Moldovan Mormon with him. And I asked the second guy, and so where are you from? And he goes, oh, Southern Utah. I said, oh, St. George? He goes, yeah. I go, yeah, I've been to St. George a million times. My son used to live there, and I'm very familiar with the area. So chatted him up. We pointed him out. Here's actually what we're doing. You can read the English here. And this is the banner that we use. And so they said, well, we'll try to come. So what this is Romanian, Russian, and English, which asks the question, looking for answers, find hope. And then the times and dates of the lectureships, again in all three languages, offering free Bibles, which we handed out quite a few to folks. And then down here, something that we've decided to put on all of our banners, both in Lithuania and in Moldova, which says we are not Jehovah's Witnesses. We are Christians. Because we're always asked that. When we're talking to people and giving them the invitation, or they come by where we're standing, they'll say, well, Testivo Jehovah? No. We're just Christians. That's all we are. Because, especially in Lithuania, Jehovah's Witnesses are not looked on favorably. And I didn't run into any in Moldova this time or in Lithuania, but in the spring we did. They had their little setup a couple blocks down from where we were. But it's important to make that point because it's important to the people. If they think you're a Jehovah's Witnesses, they will shut you off, which is good. Amen to that. But we don't want to be identified with that. We're just Christians. We're just going to talk about the Bible. Would you like a free Bible? And that amazes people. A free Bible? And even after we give it to them, we'll say, would you like Russian, English, or Romanian? And they'll give us their answer. They'll pick it up and they'll go, so how much? I said, no, it's free. That is yours. You can have it. Really? Yes, it's yours. It just blows them away that there's nothing commercial attached to it, which makes an impression. So we started the lectureships. In our typical say, Sergei does the translating and operates the board. This is the Bible text in Romanian and Russian, with Phil and Caleb presenting the lessons, which during the lectureship were on the parables of Jesus. But right here are two of the Mormons that showed up at the lectureship. This guy I hadn't met before. His name was Charles, but this is the one that I really talked to that was from California. And they came. Now, they only stayed about a half an hour and then left. But they were favorably impressed, at least by what they told me. And who knows what seed might have been planted. If nothing was done, they never would have heard the truth, at least in this venue. So God can use that. During the lectureship each day on Thursday and Friday, after the first session, the men and the women would break out into separate classes. Beth and Kim would teach the women, with Caleb and then Phil teaching the men. And this was the attendance of the men. As you can see, the churches there are primarily women. It is not surprising in Europe at all, because in many ways men are absent. That's part of the Soviet legacy in Europe, in Eastern Europe. But good classes, good discussions, good questions, even from such a small group, because they want to learn, they want to hear, they want to grow. And so it's just wonderful to see. So this is the group, all three churches together in Chisinau for the lectureships. And they look forward to this every year because they get to see each other. There really is a true love among the brethren. When they come together, it's just like old relatives. I haven't seen you for so long, and it's a family reunion, and they look at it that way, and it's just such a joyful time. We get to spend 3 or 4 days together. The restaurant there in the hotel provides meals, so you don't have to go anywhere. Everyone just is together and talking and renewing acquaintances and just enjoying being together in the Lord. So that is the report. That's kind of the highlights of what I did. But I did sit down after we were done and kind of write an evaluation of what I experienced while it was fresh in my memory. As far as Vilnius goes, the positives there is that there is a good core of godly members who want to grow, who want to serve the Lord, who want to reach out to the lost with the gospel. And there are 6 or 7 of them that form that core that we're looking forward to working with in the future. 2 weeks ago, Brother Sergey, who on occasion will give the opening prayer for services, but he's a shy man and very soft-spoken. For the first time, he gave the Lord's Supper talk. And Shavilla said he did a beautiful job. The week after, which is last Sunday, Edus, the young man we saw there in the youth group, stood up before the congregation for the first time and helped lead singing. So that is very encouraging to the church, as you can imagine. A big growth step for them, and it is an example of the brethren there wanting to to take on the responsibility of being involved in the work, because they've gotten into the habit of relying on Joseph for too long, and that's been detrimental to them. But because he lost his support from his sponsoring church, they decided, hey, we got to step up, which was a great reaction. You could go one of 2 ways. Well, we're just going to quit. The church fragments and disappears, or we need to do our job. It's time for us to get to work, and that's the reaction they had. There is a big negative, though, which is going to be a major hurdle for the church in Vilnius to overcome. It's been a long-term issue that is public knowledge within the church, and it's something that I have witnessed on my 6 trips over there, and I have addressed it in my previous trips to Vilnius, and others here in the States, Americans who have had long-term relationships going back many, many, many years with the churches in Vilnius, have spoken to me to get my impression of what I see there, to see if it coincided with theirs. The issue there is the environment that it exists within Jos's and Javilla's family. Those who have discussed the situation with me are in agreement with my evaluation that this is not in accordance with God's pattern for the family, and that it fundamentally lies with the responsibility for leadership that God has ordained within the family that is given to the husband and the father. For years, both these other brethren that are familiar with the work and I have spoken with and admonished Joseph on this, because he has been unwilling to accept this responsibility. Over the years, help has been offered and provided both by Americans and by brethren there in Vilnius. Professional counseling has been offered and paid for by American brethren. I have had meetings between me and Joseph and other members of the church at those members' request to discuss this situation. And they were motivated by their desire to help Joseph and Jivla have the relationship that God desires within the family. Unfortunately, there has been no sign of repentance on Joseph's part after years of effort. And I have spoken with him quite plainly in the past regarding this. He shows no long-term willingness to submit to God's will as far as what the husband and the father is supposed to be within the family. And this, of course, is very discouraging to the church in Vilnius. They are aware of it, though. It's a major issue that they are going to have to decide on how to handle in order to move forward. But there are several American brethren, including myself, who still want to try to help the church in Vilnius, and we're going to do that. But I would ask for your prayers for everyone involved, for Josas and Shavila, for the church there in Vilnius, for those who will be going over. There's a brother from Mississippi who's going over there the middle of this month. In fact, he talked to me and said, "Do you think it's worth me going over there?" Because he knows what's going on. And I said, "Well, brother, yes, I think you can help. You can encourage them. And talk to Joseph once again, although I am not confident that it's going to have any effect because he has been spoken to. But please keep that in your prayers. It is a tough situation that they're going to have to deal with. As far as the churches in Moldova, much more positive. I've already touched on it. There is a sincere love of the Lord on their part and a love for each other. They receive sound teaching consistently, both from the work that Sergey does, and both John Gentry and I have Zoom classes with them every week, going through the prophets right now. So there is that consistent level of teaching that they're receiving and that they always look forward to. The churches there are at peace, even though the outward pressures from the world and the geopolitics of the area weigh on them. Their confidence is in the Lord. And interestingly enough, I didn't get any questions from them this time about, well, what do you think about the Russians? What are they going to do? Because they realize that from what we've taught them in the past, that really doesn't matter. It's in the Lord's hands. Jesus sits on his throne. He rules among the nations, and his will be done. Our job is to remain faithful to him, to serve him, whatever the situation might be, so that our lights can shine in the darkness and draw people away from the turmoil that exists in that part of the world to the stability and the truth that is found only in Jesus Christ. So, very encouraged about the situation in Moldova. I'm encouraged about the response from the godly brethren in Vilnius and look forward to working with them. We're tentatively looking up at going back over there in March, myself and John Gentry and Nathan Morrison with his wife Becky, and I think Phil is also going to try to make it. But there's going to be work to do. We're going to be holding another lectureship, and there's a lot of work to help build up the churches there in Lithuania. So once again, their heartfelt thanks for all that you do to help them, and my thanks also. Without your encouragement and your support and your prayers, what is being done over there wouldn't even be possible. But God is working, and I hope to still be able to be used by him in whatever degree he wants to use me to continue to do the work over there. So that is the situation in Europe this time. Much good, some things that aren't so good, but that's what happens when people are involved. And the Lord has directed us on how to deal with every situation. But we never like to end a discussion or a sermon in the morning without offering an invitation to you if you're visiting with us and you're not a Christian. As I mentioned, over in Europe, we talk to a lot of people who are not interested in religion, but I'm seeing sort of a warming up, especially among young people, surprisingly. There's a surging interest in spiritual things, and I think it's because of what they see in the world around them there in Eastern Europe. So we do that because souls are precious, wherever they are. Jesus died for all of us. And God tells us that he is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. He loves us enough that he gave us Jesus, his son, on the cross. so that we can be forgiven of our sins and have fellowship with Him in eternity. And if you are subject to that invitation and you want to do something about your eternal soul and your relationship with God, we invite you to come forward and take care of that while we stand and sing.